Federal agents say a South Texas doctor embezzled $240 million and made bogus diagnoses to patients in a massive healthcare fraud scheme. Authorities say thousands have been affected, many right here in San Antonio.
The moment the needle pierced her arm, Maria knew something was wrong. The burning pain, the nausea, the doctor's cold smile as he billed her insurance $8,000 for treatment she didn't need. This is the story of how one man turned medicine into a weapon, how he built an empire of suffering, complete with private jets and luxury villas, by convincing people they were sick. For 18 years, Dr. Jorge Zamora-Quezada did just that, handing out fake cancer diagnoses, pumping healthy patients with toxic chemotherapy, and building an empire of suffering, leaving utter devastation in his wake. By the end of this video, you'll understand why prosecutors called this one of the most depraved cases of medical fraud in American history. Welcome back to Bad People, where we deep dive into the most mind-boggling cases. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss any episode. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Jorge Zamora-Quezada turned his medical practice into an assembly line of lies. Between 2000 and 2018, his clinics across Texas' Rio Grande Valley operated with chilling efficiency, not to heal, but to exploit. His scheme relied on one devastating deception: diagnosing healthy patients with rheumatoid arthritis, a painful, incurable autoimmune disease that would require lifelong treatment. The numbers alone are staggering. $118 million in fraudulent claims submitted to insurers, with $28 million successfully paid out by Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. But behind those figures were real people, real medical records falsified with fabricated symptoms, and real lives tangled by unnecessary and dangerous procedures.
I went to go see Dr. Zamora. Right away he did lab work, x-rays, everything. And then he said that he diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and some other diseases that I can't pronounce right now.
MRIs, x-rays, chemotherapy drugs, and invasive infusions, all administered to patients who never needed them. Other rheumatologists in the valley later testified that hundreds of Zamora-Quezada's patients showed no signs of the disease he claimed they had. Some cases were so blatantly misdiagnosed that specialists immediately recognized the fraud. Yet, for years, the scheme continued unchecked. One of his youngest victims, a 13-year-old girl, endured toxic infusions for a made-up condition, her childhood stolen by a doctor who saw her not as a patient, but as a paycheck. But the financial fraud was only the beginning. The true devastation came in the form of broken bodies, and the story of what Zamora-Quezada's treatments did to his patients is even harder to hear. The physical toll of Zamora-Quezada's deception was catastrophic. Patients who trusted him with their health were left with irreversible damage, some from the toxic medications he prescribed, others from the psychological trauma of being told they had a disease that didn't exist. One victim described being bedridden, unable to stand without help, pumped full of drugs that left her in constant agony. "I thought I was dying for nothing," she testified.
"This man has stole my life. These are supposed to be my golden years, and now all I do is go from the bedroom to the TV room. That's my whole life."
Others suffered even more horrifying consequences: necrosis of the jawbone, liver damage, even strokes triggered by unnecessary treatments. A grieving mother recalled how her child became a medical experiment, saying Zamora treated them like a lab rat.
Our son's legs were swelling and bruising. He told us that he had lupus. So from there, he gave us medication to give him. And the medication was for adults, and it was an adult dosage at the time. We took him to the emergency room. That's where we found out it wasn't lupus, it was leukemia, what he had. And the medication he was on, he was never supposed to have taken it. It's the hardest thing to do ever, to bury your child.
Young adults abandoned college plans, their bodies ravaged to the point where everyday tasks became unbearable. Some described feeling trapped in the body of an elderly person, all because of a doctor who prioritized profit over their lives. When insurance companies began investigating, Zamora-Quezada didn't stop. He doubled down. Employees were sent to retrieve patient records from a rundown barn where files sat rotting, soaked in urine and feces, infested with rats and termites. When records were missing, he ordered staff to fabricate them, even using ultrasounds of his own employees to fake documentation. But the deeper investigators dug, the more they uncovered, not just about the fraud, but about the man behind it. And what they found revealed a level of greed and arrogance that would shock even the most hardened observers. Behind the sterile white walls of Dr. Zamora clinics operated something far more sinister than a typical medical practice. This was a regime of fear and control, where employees worked under constant threat and patients became unwitting pawns in a criminal enterprise. The doctor didn't only commit fraud, he ruled his clinics with an iron fist, demanding absolute obedience from his staff. Former employees described a workplace atmosphere more reminiscent of a crime syndicate than a healthcare facility. Zamora referred to himself as La Eminencia, the eminence, a telling nickname that revealed his god complex. His temper was legendary. One employee recalled him hurling a paperweight at her head when she resisted ordering unnecessary tests. The message was clear: comply or face consequences. The most vulnerable employees, those on J1 visas, lived under particular threat. Zamora would remind them regularly that their immigration status depended on his goodwill, threatening deportation if they didn't meet his demands. These demands included enforcing strict $10,000 daily quotas for procedures, whether patients needed them or not. Any staff member who questioned the ethics of these practices found themselves immediately unemployed. This climate of fear ensured silence, allowing the fraud to continue unchecked for years. When investigators finally came knocking, Zamora's response revealed the depth of his criminal mindset. Rather than coming clean, he ordered staff to fabricate missing records, telling them to make them appear. The FBI would later discover the shocking, rotten conditions where patient files were stored. Even the physical evidence of his crimes was treated with the same disregard as his patients' well-being. But while his employees lived in fear and his patients suffered, this doctor was living a life of unimaginable luxury, funded entirely by their pain. The millions stolen from insurance companies and extracted from suffering patients didn't merely disappear into bank accounts, they funded a lifestyle of staggering grandeur. While his victims struggled with the physical and financial aftermath of his fraud, Zamora indulged in every luxury imaginable, leaving behind a trail of extravagant purchases that would later become evidence against him. At the peak of his criminal enterprise, the doctor's assets read like a billionaire's wish list. A sleek red Maserati Gran Turismo with custom plates represented just one of his many toys. For longer trips, he had his own private jet, allowing him to skip commercial flights like the mere mortals he defrauded. His real estate portfolio spanned 13 luxury properties across Texas, Mexico, and beyond. each one a testament to how profitable medical fraud could be. The numbers tell the story in cold, hard terms. $28,245,454 in assets ultimately seized by authorities. That beachfront villa in Cancun, paid for by unnecessary chemotherapy treatments, that private jet, funded by fake diagnoses, the Maserati, bought with money meant for legitimate patient care. Perhaps most galling was the timing of these indulgences. While patients suffered through the horrific side effects of medications they never needed, hair loss, organ damage, unbearable pain, Zamora was flying between his luxury homes, enjoying the fruits of their suffering. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Ordinary people facing financial ruin and health crises on one side, and their doctor living like a pharmaceutical kingpin on the other. But all empires eventually fall, and Zamora's house of cards was about to come crashing down in spectacular fashion. The same arrogance that fueled his lavish spending would ultimately lead to his undoing, as investigators began connecting the dots between his wealth and his crimes. The empire of fraud, Jorge Zamora-Quezada, built over nearly 2 decades, began crumbling in 2018 when sharp-eyed analysts spotted something unusual. A specialized data analytics team noticed impossible billing patterns. Certain expensive treatments were being ordered at rates no legitimate practice would require. This digital paper trail led investigators straight to the heart of a criminal operation disguised as medical care. What followed was a meticulous takedown. Prosecutors built an ironclad case through mountains of evidence and over 100 victim testimonies. The 25-day trial laid bare every disturbing detail: the fabricated diagnoses, the dangerous unnecessary treatments, the intimidation of employees, and the systematic looting of healthcare systems. When the verdict came in May 2025, it was decisive: guilty on all counts. 7 charges of healthcare fraud, plus obstruction of justice and conspiracy. The sentencing delivered poetic justice. Zamora-Quezada, once the self-proclaimed eminence who terrorized patients and staff alike, stood in court wearing an orange jumpsuit as he received a 10-year federal prison sentence, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Every asset purchased with stolen funds, the Maserati, the private jet, the 13 luxury properties, was ordered forfeited, stripping him of every ill-gotten luxury. Yet the true significance of this case extends far beyond one disgraced doctor's downfall, exposing systemic vulnerabilities in our healthcare system that allowed such crimes to flourish for nearly 20 years. The battle to prevent future medical predators has only just begun. Dr. Zamora-Quezada's 10-year sentence closes a dark chapter, but the damage lingers. His victims still bear the scars of unnecessary chemo, while his $28 million fraud reveals how easily trust can be weaponized. This case begs the question: how many other medical predators are still out there? The answer lies with us. Smash that like button. If you believe medical fraud deserves harsher punishment, subscribe for more deep dives into white-collar crime. Comment below. Should doctors who harm patients lose their licenses for life? Remember, not all dangers come with a weapon. Some come with a prescription pad and medical overalls. Stay vigilant, and we'll see you in the next investigation.